Thank you for staying with us. Comair's wings have officially been clipped. Business rescue practitioners say there's no way to rescue the company and it should be liquidated. Now, this could see around 2,000 people losing their jobs. Let's discuss this right now with business restructuring specialist Aviwe Ndyamara. Thank you so much, Aviwe, for your time, and good morning to you. Obviously, for a decision like this to be made, there have been due processes, followed. I'm sure so much has been considered by the business rescue practitioners. Just take us through that process before coming to a decision where they're saying that liquidation proceedings need to commence now.
Thank you. Good morning. I think there's a massive distinction. Business rescue proceedings are governed by the Companies Act, Chapter 6 of the Companies Act. And really the objective of the business rescue proceedings is for the practitioners to investigate the affairs of the company and come up with a business rescue plan that deals with the trading of the airline to a point that it would reach solvency. And so certainly a plan was published by the practitioners, and certainly certain conditions of that plan were not met. And I think specifically from the brief information I have is that it was due to a lack of financing or capital being raised purely for the day-to-day operations of the airline. So there's various obligations that business rescue practitioners have, and certainly one of them is to, at any point in time where they believe that the company cannot be rescued, is to consider liquidation proceedings. So in this case, a plan was published determining how they would rescue the airline, but they obviously failed, or I'm saying the company or the shareholders would have been unsuccessful under this climate in raising the requisite capital in order to implement the business restructuring or the business rescue plan.
Yeah, in a notice that has been published obviously yesterday, the BRP's advised creditors that they no longer believe there's any reasonable prospect that the company can actually be rescued. And I just wonder, in what state could a company or even Comair in this instance financially be in for a BRP to say they don't believe there's any prospect whatsoever, credible that is, that they can actually be rescued?
Yeah, no, look, it's at a dire state. The BRPs will be governed by the document that they published to all affected persons. So obviously, they would have elected that if we can't run our day-to-day operations, or we can't meet our obligations in terms of paying suppliers on a day-to-day basis. Now you must appreciate, they're not dealing or talking necessarily about the pre-business rescue creditors or the massive debt that still needs to be payable. They're purely talking about, we don't have enough capital to deal with our day-to-day operations. So it's a risky point, because are you then trading the business in a worse position than it was pre-business rescue? So there's an obligation to be considered. So without dealing necessarily with their restructuring plan, which of course I would assume it would have been a plan that would talk about trading over time in order to get to a solvent position. They're purely dealing with, guys, we don't have enough fuel in the tank to pay salaries, to pay creditors. In fact, we are trading to a worse position. So that's really the danger. So,
right.
So to answer you, they're massively indebted. You don't want to increase that debt exposure.
Makes sense. So with that being said, Aviwe, what does it mean for the staff, the employees of Comair? What does it mean for the customers of Comair? What does it even mean for the lenders who are expecting, their debt to be repaid back at this point?
Well, from a lender's point, they would have been an assumption that they would have gotten 10 cents, 50 cents, or 100 cents in the rand during the business rescue proceedings over a period. Now, that scenario is absolutely changed, because we're moving into a different framework. The liquidation proceedings are governed by the old Companies Act, and that's a totally different process. Then, of course, the employees, critically for the employees, under business rescue proceedings, the provisions of the Labour Relations Act are in place and would have been complied with. But in a liquidation scenario for the employees, unfortunately, which is a sad situation, that as soon as that order is granted on Tuesday, the employees' contracts will be immediately suspended. And of course, the provisional liquidators and I'm assuming now, this is a very important point, that, with an airline, there's intangible and there's tangible assets. So certainly the provisional liquidators would still have to extract as much value as possible in order to pay a better dividend, or at least a substantial dividend to creditors. My assumption is that there would be a provisional liquidation order granted instead of a final liquidation order granted, because that would immediately terminate the airline's licenses, or what I call is intangible assets. So it's a different legislation totally when it comes to the liquidation proceedings, but what it means for employees, creditors, is that the status quo now changes.
Yeah, and also, Aviwe, I know that you were the liquidator during, the S Express time, or rather the time with which S Express was going through, similar to what Comair is going through right now. Let's do just briefly, please, if you may, checks and balances in terms of the similarities and differences from the S Express case to the Comair case in your experience, during, especially when particularly S Express was going through their liquidation process.
I'm not privy to detailed information regarding the business rescue proceedings of Comair. In fact, to the extent that I'm not aware fully of what their debt exposure is. But all I can say is that Comair's debt exposure exceeds a billion rand, and joint liquidators would be appointed provisionally. They would then immediately take charge of the airline's known assets and value what is the material assets of the airline, and also come to a determination regarding what is an intangible asset of Comair. There will be a figure. As soon as they got appointed, within a space of 4 or 5 weeks, certainly there will be an understanding of what is the true value of Comair's assets, both intangible and tangible. Then from that basis, you can then only quantify what would be the dividend that would be payable to the 4 billion odd creditors. So distinctions between the two, it's very difficult to make. I'm not fully aware of the actual figures of Comair, but one commonality, it's the airline, there's licenses, there's routes, which we deem as value, and of course there's material assets.
All right. I have to leave it there. I have to leave it there, unfortunately, Aviwe, due to a breaking story that just came in now. That's business restructuring specialist Aviwe Ndyamara. But of course, Gareth will update you on the latest coming in now.